Pope Francis greeted 132 official delegations that came to Rome to congratulate him and welcome his pontificate.
When Pope Francis greeted Ecumenical Patriarch Bartholomew from Istanbul during the inaugural Mass.
Pope Francis has surprised the world by preparing the ground for his successor. With 80% of the cardinals under his influence, this calculated move could reshape the future of the church. His health and bold reforms have led to this critical moment. Let's uncover the clues and delve deeper into the mystery of who will take the helm and what direction the church will take in the years ahead. The making of a modern pope. Speculation about the next pope isn't new. It's a guessing game that's as old as the papacy itself. Why? Because this role isn't just a job, it's a global influence. The Pope's decisions ripple far beyond the walls of the Vatican. Recent developments have only intensified this chatter. Pope Francis has reportedly dropped some heavy hints about his potential successor, leaving everyone buzzing, and then in an unexpected move, the Vatican unveiled a symbol that may hold the key to the future of the church. Throughout his nearly 11-year reign, Francis hasn't shied away from addressing tough topics. Now, at 87, his health is under a microscope. Rumors swirl about whether he'll retire or stay the course. Despite the whispers, one thing is clear. He's thinking about the church's future. He's spoken openly about the traits he wants to see in the next leader. Each statement adds fuel to the guessing game. Francis has made it clear. Humility is non-negotiable. He's always valued simplicity, ditching the lavish apostolic palace to live in a modest guest house. Actions speak louder than words, and this move was a mic drop. He's signaling that the next pope must lead without chasing luxury. It's a nod to figures like Pope John the 23rd, whose down-to-earth approach won him universal love. But humility isn't enough. The next pope needs a shepherd's heart. Francis's legacy is deeply tied to his care for the marginalized. He's laser-focused on the poor, the outcasts, and the suffering. The future pope, he insists, must prioritize people over protocol. This echoes the compassionate leadership of Pope John the 23rd, who guided with kindness rather than rules. Francis also envisions a leader with a global outlook. The world is shrinking, cultures are colliding, and the church must adapt. He's consistently highlighted the importance of connecting with the global south, home to millions living in poverty. A future pope, he believes, must bridge these cultural divides, much like Pope Paul VI did during his groundbreaking travels. This isn't just a wish, it's a requirement in today's interconnected world. Social justice remains a cornerstone of Francis' vision. He's tackled everything from poverty to climate change, urging the church to stand with the marginalized. The next leader must carry this torch, pushing for equality and fairness. Figures like Saint Oscar Romero, who fought tirelessly for justice, embody the spirit Francis wants to see in his successor. The Pope's message is loud and clear. The church can't ignore these pressing issues. Building bridges is another must-have quality. Francis has poured his energy into uniting factions within the church and reaching across religious divides. His historic meeting with the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar stands as a testament to this commitment. The next Pope must continue this work, fostering peace and understanding in a fractured world. Pope John Paul II's role in mending divides between East and West serves as a blueprint for this mission. Spirituality is the foundation of Francis's leadership criteria. He's adamant that the Pope's role isn't just administrative, it's deeply spiritual. A leader without a strong prayer life, he argues, can't guide the faithful effectively. He's drawn inspiration from figures like Pope Benedict XVI, whose devotion was unwavering. The next Pope must be someone who leads with both prayer and purpose. Engaging with youth is another priority. Francis has worked tirelessly to bring younger generations into the fold, hosting massive events like World Youth Day. He understands that the church's future hinges on its ability to connect with disillusioned youth. A future pope must double down on these efforts, ensuring that young people feel seen and heard. Inclusivity has defined much of Francis' papacy. He's opened the doors of the church to groups that have historically felt excluded. From divorced Catholics to the LGBTQ+ community, his message has been one of welcome. The next pope, he insists, must continue this legacy of inclusion, reflecting Christ's embrace of society's outcasts. Reform is another key pillar. Francis has taken on some of the church's most entrenched problems, from financial transparency to addressing abuse of power scandals. He's made it clear that his successor must keep the momentum going. This isn't a new idea. Pope John XXIII's Second Vatican Council laid the groundwork for modernizing the church, but Francis wants these efforts to reach new heights. Charity and mercy are the final traits Francis has emphasized. His papacy has been marked by a focus on forgiveness and compassion, particularly in the sacrament of reconciliation. He's called for a church that mirrors Christ's mercy, extending kindness to the downtrodden. The next pope must embody this spirit, leading with both heart and head. Francis's insights into the ideal pope don't stop there. He's also placed great importance on resilience. Leading the Catholic Church is no easy task, and the next pope will need a strong will to face the challenges of modernity. Whether it's dealing with geopolitical tensions, addressing the church's internal struggles, or navigating a rapidly changing cultural landscape, the next leader must be steadfast. Francis's own journey, filled with both triumphs and trials, highlights the resilience required to shepherd a global faith community. The environment is another area where Francis has left his mark. His encyclical on caring for the earth has been one of his most defining messages. He's urged Catholics worldwide to see environmental stewardship as a spiritual duty. The next Pope, Francis believes, must continue this mission, encouraging the faithful to protect creation. Climate change and environmental degradation are crises that require moral leadership, and Francis wants the church to be at the forefront. The next Pope must also have a deep sense of empathy. Francis has often spoken about walking in others' shoes, understanding their struggles, and sharing their burdens. This empathy isn't just a virtue, it's a necessity for a leader who represents over 1 billion people from diverse backgrounds. The ability to listen and connect on a personal level is what makes a pope relatable and effective. Francis has emphasized that the next leader must be adaptable. The Catholic Church, steeped in centuries of tradition, often struggles with change. Yet Francis has shown that adaptation is crucial. He's introduced new ways of engaging with the modern world, from using social media to addressing contemporary issues like artificial intelligence and bioethics. The next pope will need to balance tradition with innovation, ensuring the church remains relevant without losing its core values. A sense of humor, while not often highlighted, is another trait Francis values. He's shown that humor can be a powerful tool for connection and humility. The next pope, Francis suggests, should not take himself too seriously. Laughter, after all, is a universal language that can bridge gaps and ease tensions. Francis has also pointed to the importance of transparency. The church's history is riddled with scandals and secrecy, eroding trust among the faithful. The next pope must prioritize openness, ensuring that the church's actions align with its teachings. Transparency isn't just about governance, it's about rebuilding credibility and fostering a culture of accountability. While Francis hasn't named names, his detailed descriptions of the ideal successor have set the stage for endless speculation. Cardinals worldwide are under the spotlight as observers try to match these traits to potential candidates. With Francis shaping the majority of the College of Cardinals, his influence on the selection process is undeniable. Still, the big reveal remains a mystery, fueling debates and discussions across the globe. Who might take the reins next? A few names stand out as possible successors: diplomats, advocates, pastors. First up, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle. This 62-year-old from the Philippines has been nicknamed Asia's Pope Francis. Why? Because his style, values, and leadership feel like a mirror image of the current pope. When Pope Francis put him in charge of the Vatican's Department for Evangelization, it was a clear sign that Tagle's influence was on the rise. Tagle's background as the Archbishop of Manila and his time leading Caritas Internationalis have cemented his reputation as a compassionate leader. He's not about flashy speeches or grand gestures. Instead, he's all about connecting with people, rich or poor, young or old, world leaders or everyday folks. It's his genuine approach that has earned him respect not just in the Catholic Church, but globally. He's also known for his ability to break down complex ideas into simple, relatable lessons. Whether he's talking about theology or life's challenges, Tagle makes it accessible to everyone. His focus on social justice and uplifting the poor aligns closely with Pope Francis's priorities. It's no wonder people think he could be a top pick for the next pope. Then there is Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican's Secretary of State. If Tagle is the pastor's pope, Parolin is the diplomat's pope. His extensive experience in global diplomacy makes him a key player in the Church's interactions with governments worldwide. Parolin was instrumental in negotiating the 2018 Vatican-China agreement, which, while controversial, showcased his ability to handle tricky situations. Parolin's focus is not just on politics, it is about building bridges and fostering dialogue. He has been a consistent advocate for peace, human rights, and religious freedom. His ability to navigate the Church's internal politics while representing it on the global stage has made him a strong candidate in the eyes of many. That said, some feel his diplomatic approach might lack the warmth and pastoral touch people expect from a pope. Balancing these qualities would be a challenge for Parolin if he were to step into the role. Cardinal Peter Turkson from Ghana is another name on everyone's radar. His advocacy for social justice and environmental issues has made him a standout leader. He played a significant role in drafting Pope Francis' encyclical on the environment, which highlighted the Church's stance on climate change and its impact on the poor. Turkson's focus on giving a voice to the voiceless has earned him admiration both within and outside the Church. Coming from Africa, a continent where Catholicism is growing rapidly, Turkson's election could signal a shift in the Church's focus and priorities. However, the challenge for him would be balancing the administrative demands of the papacy with the pastoral care expected of a pope. Pope Francis has spoken highly of Taglia's humility, pastoral care, and connection with people. These qualities align closely with the Pope's vision for the Church. The fact that Tagle is often referred to as Asia's Pope Francis only adds fuel to the speculation. While the Pope has not outright endorsed Tagle, his comments suggest that he sees him as someone who could carry forward his legacy. To grasp the importance of this decision, we must look back at the papacy's pivotal role in history, the evolution of power. The papacy, that long-standing institution leading the Catholic Church, has had a wild ride through history. For nearly 2,000 years, the role of the Pope has been wrapped up in religion, politics, and society. It's been a mix of holiness and drama, power plays, and spiritual influence, making it a fascinating study. Back in the early days, Christianity was still figuring itself out. Catholic tradition says that St. Peter and St. Paul got things rolling in Rome during the 1st century. From there, the papacy began its climb as one of the most enduring institutions in human history. It wasn't all smooth sailing though. Popes often found themselves mediating big arguments over doctrine and dealing with the spread of Christianity. Things really took a turn in 313 when the Roman Emperor's Edict of Milan allowed everyone to practice their own religion freely. This moment, called the Peace of the Church, gave Christianity some breathing room. Fast forward to 325, and you've got the First Council of Nicaea tackling Arianism, a belief that didn't sit well with the majority. The council declared Trinitarianism as the official doctrine, solidifying the special roles of Rome, Alexandria, and Antioch within the church hierarchy. After the Western Roman Empire collapsed, the papacy stepped up as a steady source of authority. Enter Pope Gregory I in the late 6th century. Gregory, coming from an old-school Roman family, managed the church with an iron fist. He introduced reforms and penned works filled with stories of miracles, angels, demons, and apocalyptic warnings. His leadership marked a shift from the classical way of thinking to a more medieval worldview. Things got even more intense in 756 with the donation of Pepin, which turned the papacy into a temporal power. For the first time, popes ruled over territories, the papal states. This shift meant that popes now had land and political clout, but it also invited interference from secular leaders. Over the next 11 centuries, the papacy became almost inseparable from Rome's history. Not all eras were glorious, though. From the 9th to the 11th centuries, the papacy hit rock bottom. Political factions fought for control, leading to a stretch of chaos where popes were imprisoned, deposed, or worse. This era saw family dynasties manipulating papal elections, and even a pope, John XII, infamous for turning the Lateran Palace into a party house. Conflict between emperors and popes was constant, with corruption and power plays dominating the scene. The Renaissance brought a different kind of vibe to the papacy. This period is remembered for grand art and ambitious architectural projects, but also for political scheming. Popes became key players in European power struggles, all while facing growing criticism from reformers. The Protestant Reformation shook things up, with reformers accusing the papacy of corruption and even labeling the Pope as the Antichrist. In response, the Catholic Church launched its own counter-reformation to clean house and reaffirm its doctrines. The Council of Trent in the mid-16th century was a turning point, strengthening papal authority. Jumping to the modern era, the papacy's power shifted. In 1870, the First Vatican Council declared the Pope infallible, but only under very specific conditions. That same year, Italy's unification movement snatched Rome from the Pope's control. The Church lost its temporal power but retained its spiritual influence. The papacy regained some independence in 1929 with the Lateran Treaty, which created Vatican City as its own sovereign state. This deal ensured that popes could operate without interference from secular rulers. In 1950, Pope Pius XII exercised infallibility to declare the Assumption of Mary as dogma. That's the only time the infallibility rule has been used since it was officially defined. The Second Vatican Council in the 1960s brought significant changes. Pope John XXIII opened the doors for dialogue with other faiths, revised liturgical practices, and encouraged the Church to engage with the modern world. Since then, popes have juggled tradition with contemporary challenges, striving to keep the papacy relevant in a rapidly changing global society. Looking back to ancient times, the papacy played a crucial role in spreading Christianity. After the fall of the Roman Empire, it was the glue holding much of the Western world together. During this period, the Church filled a power vacuum left by the collapse of political structures. Bishops of Rome, later called popes, became not just spiritual leaders but also political ones. They mediated disputes, influenced rulers, and occasionally clashed with kings and emperors. Pope Leo I, also known as Leo the Great in the 5th century, is a prime example. He convinced Attila the Hun to spare Rome from destruction, a feat that cemented the Pope's role as a defender of the city and the faith. By the time Gregory I took charge in the late 6th century, the papacy was firmly established as a central figure in both spiritual and worldly matters. Gregory's reforms and writings, filled with vivid tales of the supernatural, resonated deeply with the medieval mindset and shaped the Church's role for centuries. Fast forward to the Middle Ages, and the papacy's influence only grew. The popes of this era wielded immense power, often serving as kingmakers and playing pivotal roles in shaping European politics. However, this power came at a cost. Corruption became a persistent issue, with some popes living lavishly while others engaged in scandalous behavior. The infamous period known as the Saeculum Obscurum, or the Dark Century, saw a string of popes who were little more than pawns in the hands of powerful Roman families. By the 11th century, the Church sought to reform itself. The investiture controversy was a defining moment as popes and emperors clashed over who had the authority to appoint bishops. This struggle highlighted the tension between spiritual and temporal power. Pope Gregory VII, known for his fiery temper and strong will, famously excommunicated Emperor Henry IV, forcing him to do penance in the snow at Canossa. This event symbolized the shifting power dynamics between the Church and secular rulers. The High Middle Ages brought the Crusades, a series of religious wars initiated by the papacy to reclaim the Holy Land from Muslim control. While these campaigns were framed as spiritual missions, they were also deeply political, involving alliances, betrayals, and a quest for resources. The Crusades left a lasting legacy, influencing the relationship between Christianity and Islam and shaping European identity. The Renaissance, often celebrated for its cultural and intellectual achievements, was a mixed bag for the papacy. Popes like Julius II and Leo X are remembered for their patronage of the arts, commissioning works from Michelangelo and Raphael that still captivate the world. However, their political ambitions and lavish lifestyles drew criticism. The sale of indulgences, a practice where the Church granted forgiveness of sins in exchange for money, became a flashpoint for dissent. This dissatisfaction culminated in the Protestant Reformation, a seismic event that shattered the unity of Western Christianity. Reformers like Martin Luther and John Calvin challenged the authority of the Pope and called for a return to what they saw as the true teachings of Christ. The Catholic Church responded with the Counter-Reformation, a period of intense self-examination and renewal. The Council of Trent, held over 18 years, addressed corruption, clarified doctrine, and strengthened the Church's structure. In the centuries that followed, the papacy adapted to changing times. The Enlightenment and the rise of secularism presented new challenges as the Church faced growing skepticism about its authority. The loss of the papal states in in the 19th century marked a turning point as the Pope's role shifted from temporal ruler to spiritual leader. The First Vatican Council's declaration of papal infallibility was a bold move, reaffirming the Pope's authority in matters of faith and morals. The 20th century brought its own set of trials and transformations. The Lateran Treaty of 1929 established the Vatican as an independent state, ensuring the Pope's autonomy. During the Second World War, Pope Pius XII faced criticism for his response to the Holocaust, a topic that continues to spark debate among historians. In the post-war era, the Church sought to modernize and engage with the world in new ways. The Second Vatican Council, convened by Pope John XXIII and continued by Pope Paul VI, was a watershed moment. Its reforms, including the use of vernacular languages in the liturgy and a renewed emphasis on dialogue with other faiths, aimed to make the Church more accessible and relevant. These changes were not without controversy, as some traditionalists resisted the new direction. In the 21st century, the papacy continues to navigate a complex landscape. Issues like clerical abuse of power, declining attendance, and the role of women in the Church have sparked intense debate. Popes like John Paul II, Benedict XVI, and Francis have approached these challenges in different ways, each leaving their mark on the institution. Did updating the Church help it survive or hurt its true meaning? Tell us what you think, like this post, leave a comment, and subscribe for more stories.